Here we are, part 3, and in part 3 of 9.0, Managing the Maze, we are going to transition into compliance. Now, when we talk about compliance, I want to tell you what Brad Smith, president of Microsoft, said about cybersecurity. It said, the knock-on effect of a data breach can be devastating for a company. Investing in cybersecurity means investing in your company's future. And of course, when we think about this investment, we need to change our attitude around compliance. Compliance gets a really bad name of, oh, we have to do that. We have to spend money on it. Look at all the money we're wasting, versus saying, this is an investment in our organization. We need to comply with these laws, these rules, these regulations, maybe compliance with, internal policies that we've created. Okay, those have a little bit different feel. But all of this comes down to one point. And if you've ever taken or listened to one of my project management courses, I am constantly telling students, here is what project management is about. You plan again, you review your plan, you review your plan again. Once you have a solid plan, then and only then do you execute. 80% plan, 20% execute, you're going to end up with a great product. People tend to fail or underplan. Here within GCR, we cannot underplan. We're going to miss something. So let's dive right in. Compliance is the process of adhering to established security standards, regulations, and policies to ensure systems and practices meet legal and organizational requirements. Remember, this isn't just about meeting those laws and regulations. It's about also meeting our policies. When we talk about the role within cybersecurity, these are guide points. They're checkpoints. So in that maze, as we're navigating the maze, this is an opportunity to stop and say, okay, did we do what we thought we did? And what was it we were supposed to do here? So we go back, we look at those policies, those procedures, and we align that. It creates a guide through this complex maze, frankly, okay? It is important, the consequences, non-compliance are severe, both tangibly and intangibly. If we talk about tangibly, we think financially, and we think about heavy fines and, legal repercussions, taking down our business, being fined, whatever the case may be, not being able to operate in a certain country that was 20% of our organization's revenue because we didn't comply. Intangibility, the non-compliance can erode trust with customers, partners, stakeholders, investors. Didn't we just recently see this with CrowdStrike? What happened to their stock in a day? What happened to their stock over 3 days? 30% drop in their stock. Billions with a B dollars lost, right? Why? Because somebody didn't follow a policy and procedure and produced a patch and released it without testing it and testing it and testing it. Plan, test. So, the impact of non-compliance, here are some examples for you. Target Corporation, right, experienced a massive data breach due to a weakness in third-party vendor. Let's be clear. You're responsible for your third-party vendor. Are they complying with your rules and regulations? Are they complying with state, federal, and world laws? Are they meeting GDPR if they operate in, Europe, for example? More recent example, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency issued an emergency directive mandating federal agencies to address critical vulnerabilities in Ivanti products. They, of course, did this. We're seeing the CISA do this a lot. I think they just recently did it with a Windows update that is a huge vulnerability. They're saying, government agencies, you need to have update your system by this time, right? And that time tends to be longer than a hacker could utilize the vulnerability as it is. So, patch management's a big deal here. Proactive compliance, right, should not just be seen as mandatory. Remember, it's all about our mindset. When we do this, when we're proactive with compliance and things coming down, oh, this rule isn't going to take place till next year, but we're going to implement it now, we provide a better culture as it pertains to security and a better security plan for our organization. So, foundation of compliance, right? Most organizations start with ensuring or adherence to those laws and regulations and then expand out from there. Okay? Those are the minimums. They are critical, right? They are a great foundation and a starting point. But what else can we do to expand on that to, again, create the best cybersecurity for our organization that we can? Key regulations to be aware of. Some of these are definitely coming back from previous lectures, those being the last four, right? PCI DSS, HIPAA, GDRP, CCPA. But you should also be aware of the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. So I just bring this up because most of you are students. You've got loans. Your colleges, your universities, your training centers have an obligation to protect your data. Okay. And we've seen some recent breaches, even in Oregon this year in 2024, that have compromised some of this data. So, there's just another one to be familiar with. As it pertains to compliance laws and regulations, internal policies and procedures align with that compliance, right? Compliance is not solely driven by those external laws. It's internal development of those policies and procedures that comply with those laws and then increase that strategy for our organization, right? So we want to surpass those compliance standards as much as we can and as much as we can afford, right? Now, if you work for a small business, you're looking at all this going, oh my gosh, how do I do this? The fact is you still do it. You may not do it at a level of, complexity, at a level of intensity, but it still has to be done. Even for the candy store down the street, they still have laws and regulations they have to follow as it pertains to customer data. All right? As soon as they collect someone's birth date, name and birth date, there's PII. They have to protect it. Okay? Comprehensive cybersecurity plan. It is the adherence to both external regulations as well as internal developed policies and procedures. Again, all playing together. So what does that mean? We can't develop these things in a bubble. We have to develop these things throughout the organization so we make sure all departments are representative, all stakeholders are represented in this process. So when we talk about these standards and organizations, it does start with the ISO, okay? International Organization of Standards. I think that's International Standards Organization. Sorry about that. Nope, that's actually correct. It is ISO, and you would think it would be IOS or something like that. Anyway, I just wanted to look that up. So, they develop voluntary international standards in collaboration with other organizations, right? The IEC and the ITU, that create these standards for information security, right? And a lot of these are found within ISO IEC 27001. So make sure that you look at that. Again, go out to AI. Hey, AI, what is this? You will get, a wonderful description to learn from, okay? Updated in 2023, widely adopted by organizations in and out, by the way. ISO has standards across the organization as well. So, standards for manufacturing, finance, the whole 9 yards. So back to more of a focus on computing, IEEE. So, professional organization that sets standards for telecommunications, computer engineering. These are the folks that set the Wi-Fi standards, 802.11, whatever, A, B, N, G, or G, N, AX, AE, and blah, 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 blah. Those kind of standards, okay? That brings us to the IETF. So standards organization made up of network designers, operators. So this is that level, okay? Within that OSI model, if you will. So, standards for IP, TCP, DNS, communication across the internet, the whole 9 yards. That is the IETF. So this is, when I started in computing, there was TCP/IP, but there was also IPX/SPX, which was a special implementation for Novell Networks. So, boy, was that complicated, right? One did one way, one did the other. Finally, there was a standard TCP/IP, which made life so much better. Now, we've already talked about NIST, and NIST is something you want to become familiar with. There's some great books out there on the CSF framework. You want to become familiar with it. It really is sort of the de facto standard, okay? In February 2024, as I mentioned previously, NIST released an updated cybersecurity framework. They do a great job of reaching out to stakeholders to say what needs to change based on current risks, based on current technology, what do we need to update, what do we need to prioritize, etc. So, by learning this, and I actually have my students do an assignment, a brief assignment, because to implement the NIST framework, depending on the size of your organization, can be months, can be years, all right? And the challenge becomes, this is not something we might take on in a small organization, but I do have a framework for you. So hold on, I've got a great framework from someone that I am a huge fan of that I'll introduce to you later in this lecture series for this chapter, all right? So become familiar with this, read about it, go to AI, ask for a detailed description, what it covers, why it covers it. Go out to the NIST website and check it out, okay? You can download the whole framework and look through it. Importance of standards in compliance. So, these organizations and their standards provide those frameworks, those models, right? The zero trust model, and we'll look at the difference between frameworks and models, all of which are guidelines for implementing a solid foundation of cybersecurity within an organization. All right, folks, that's it for this part. In part 4, we are going to continue with our compliance journey, finish it up. I just wanted to keep these videos short and concise, so when you have 15 minutes, you can watch a section of the video. Take care. We'll see you then.